Oh, welcome back. Warren Buffett's final Thanksgiving letter is out. Let's get to Becky quick. Being viewed, Becky, is very much a farewell letter from Mr. Buffett.
You know, it is. It is in a way. He's not going to be writing the annual letter to shareholders anymore. But, Scott, he does plan to continue writing this annual letter for Thanksgiving. He's been doing this for several years. In this latest letter this morning, he says that he's converted 1,800 of his Class A Berkshire shares to 2.7 million of the Class B shares, and then given them over to 4 family foundations. 1.5 million of those shares going to the Susan Thompson Buffett Foundation of his late wife, and 400,000 shares to each of the foundations that are run by his 3 children. By the way, that works out to about a total of $1.35 billion based on Friday's closing prices. Buffett says he is going quiet, Scott, sort of. He's not going to be writing that annual letter to shareholders anymore. He's going to be turning over the CEO job, obviously, in full to Greg Abel. That's coming at the end of this year. But he says he will continue to communicate with shareholders and the rest of us in his annual Thanksgiving letter. In this letter, he talks about the many things that he's grateful for through his life. He starts with all of the things that Omaha brought him, from his 2 wives to wonderful schools and doctors to the incredible friends that he collected over the years. People like Charlie Munger, Walter Scott, and Don Keogh, all of whom went on to become Berkshire shareholders and board members. Buffett says he is grateful for his long life. He's 95 years old now, but he says that his unexpected longevity has, in his words, unavoidable consequences of major importance to his family and the achievement of his charitable objectives. He points out that his children, who are now at the ages of 72, 70, and 67, are above the age of normal retirement. So he says he needs to step up the pace of his gifts to their 3 foundations during his lifetime so that they can give more of the money away now while they're in their primes. One caveat to this, of course, Buffett adds that he doesn't want to give away too many of the Class A Berkshire shares until shareholders are just as comfortable with Abel at the helm as they were with he and with Charlie. Basically, that's to fend off any activist shareholder action or takeover attempts. But he does say that that comfort level with Abel he expects to happen sooner rather than later. He also goes through, and Buffett goes on to say that the acceleration of his lifetime gifts to his children's foundations are not a reflection of a change in his views about Berkshire's prospects under Greg Abel's leadership. Here's how he says it. He says, I can't think of a CEO, a management consultant, an academic, a member of the government, you name it, that I would select over Greg to handle your savings and mine. Buffett adds that he hopes Abel remains a CEO for several decades and that Berkshire's businesses have moderately better than average prospects, at least in his opinion of things. And Buffett offers some words of wisdom at the end of this letter. He says that he's happy to say that he feels better about the second half of his life than the first. And he actually challenges others to learn from their mistakes. He says it's never too late to improve. And, of course, from a man with a net worth of around $150 billion, he says that there is much more to life than money. Here's a quote from him. He says, greatness does not come about through accumulating great amounts of money, great amounts of publicity, or great power in government. When you help someone in any thousands of ways, you help the world. Kindness is costless, but also priceless. Whether you are religious or not, it's hard to beat that golden rule as a guide to behavior. And, Scott, he says he will continue to write this, but he's not going to be writing the annual letter in May that Greg Abel will be writing for the first time this year.
Yeah, really, I feel, we're all richer, of course, anytime we hear from Mr. Buffett. Let me just come back to you with one thing, because I think it speaks to, which you know better than everybody, the thought process or the way that, they've thought about the investments that they've made over the many years that Warren has been running Berkshire Hathaway, where he says, in aggregate, I'm quoting from the letter, in aggregate, Berkshire's businesses have moderately better than average prospects, led by a few non-correlated and sizable gems. However, a decade or two from now, there will be many companies that have done better than Berkshire. Our size takes its toll. Berkshire has less chance of a devastating disaster than any business I know. And Berkshire has a more shareholder-conscious management and board than almost any company, with I am familiar and I have seen a lot. Can you just speak to that through the lens that you've had for all these years?
Yeah, I mean, he and Charlie Munger, for years at this point, actually for as long as I've been covering them, over 18 years or so, have talked about how it's much harder to make those outsized gains. It's the law of big numbers, right? Once you're bigger, it's harder to make those outsized gains. And that's certainly been the case with Berkshire Hathaway. But he also points out that he thinks it's really safe. It's a a safe guardian for your investments. And that's how he and Charlie always thought of the partnership, how Warren Buffett himself, when he started that family partnership with his friends and family, thought of the whole thing. And they have carried that over to this day, even despite the company having such a large market capitalization at this point. I think he's trying to be straightforward in his views about the company. That, yes, Greg Abel, he thinks, has a very good read of any potential risks when it comes to insurance, with reinsurance, with any of the major businesses, and he happens to be a much more hands-on operator than Warren Buffett ever was, just in terms of checking in with each of those businesses along the way. So I think he's got a lot of faith in it, wants to make sure people realize he has faith in Greg Abel running all of these things, but because it's such a large company, you're not going to see it outperform the S&P the way a technology stock might, but he also thinks it's a lot safer from any blow-ups along the way.